Shabbat Shalom. I hope that everyone had a meaningful Passover. It was a good holiday. And in fact, it was very hard for me to get back to work. This Shabbat, we read and learn Parashat Shemini. Our parasha speaks of kosher laws, especially regarding animals that are forbidden to eat, the swine. The notoriously unclean animal is mentioned in our parasha. In addition, the famous phrase that appears in different ways in the Bible, "Be holy, because I am holy," appears at the end of the parasha. In this week's parasha, two major historical events occur: the dedication of the tabernacle and the unexpected death of Aaron's sons. Over the years, the dedication of the tabernacle has been brushed aside, as well as Nadav and Avihu, the two sons of Aaron, and the high priests of the Jewish people, who were also brushed aside. And from this parasha, the kosher laws have been preserved in the collective awareness of the Jewish people and have never been removed. In fact, the swine, or rather the avoidance of it, has become a central symbol of Judaism. In each generation, we try to find an explanation of why God commanded us to keep from unkosher foods. Sometimes we determine that the kosher laws and the restrictions help maintain the distinction between the Jew and the rest of the world. In other times, we decided that the kosher laws were given for health reasons, that the Jewish diet is a recipe for better health. And maybe God gave the kosher laws because both reasons are true. As humans, we can find 1,000 reasons why God forbade us to eat pork. But the truth is, they are irrelevant for the discussion, because God commands and we obey. After the long list of unkosher animals comes the commandment of God, "Be holy, because I am holy." This commandment is stated in the context of eating kosher. This command comes to indicate the importance of observing God's commandments, and to make it clear to the people of Israel and to us that we have the need to preserve purity, including what enters the mouth, and not only what comes out of it. And here we come to one of the old arguments about kosher laws in the Judeo-Christian and Messianic world. What goes into someone's mouth does not defile them, but what comes out of their mouth, that is what defiles them. This saying of Yeshua seemingly contradicts the kosher laws of the Torah, and there are people who find here permission to eat anything. It should be clear to us that this is not Yeshua's intent. Yeshua is speaking in the manner that the prophet Isaiah did when he said that God does not want sacrifices or offerings, but rather that there would be kindness amongst men. Nevertheless, the Torah explicitly commands the offering of sacrifices. In like manner, Yeshua says that what enters the mouth defiles a man for a limited time. In fact, the next day, the person is clean from the impurity of the food. But words that come out of the mouth have the power to defile or harm other people for much longer than a day. When Miriam spoke against Moses, she immediately became leprous, which makes a person unclean for much longer than eating all the unclean things together. And according to Yeshua's perception, there is no comparison between the severity of the act of slander and eating, just as there is no comparison between the severity of the act of lying, theft, or murder. And yet, we are commanded to avoid all of these. This Shabbat, we also read about the dedication of the tabernacle. After the detailed review of the tabernacle and its vessels in the second part of the book of Exodus, and following the instructions regarding the sacrificial practices in the tabernacle that are described to us in the beginning of the book of Leviticus, our parasha begins with a dedication of the tabernacle. But in the middle of this important and happy event, the priestly family, the people of Israel, go through a tragedy. The two sons of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu, the priests, are killed in the tabernacle, right in the middle of the celebrations. Aaron's sons, Nadav and Avihu, took their censers, put fire in them, and added incense. And they offered unauthorized fire before the Lord, contrary to his command. So fire came out of the presence of the Lord and consumed them, and they died before the Lord. The reason for the severe punishment of the sons of Aaron is explicitly written in the Bible: the offering of unauthorized fire. Torah commentators have attempted to interpret the sin, that they came in drunk with wine, that they came in without washing their hands and feet. There are those who say that they wanted to take authority from Moses and Aaron, to take over the people, as in a rebellion, or even a spiritual ecstasy. And there are many more options. In my opinion, there are three possibilities that exceed the others in their logic. The first is a spiritual ecstasy, that they became uncontrollably excited and broke God's instructions in public. This interpretation speaks of the innocence of mind, not evil and not malice. The second interpretation is rebellion. In fact, an attempt by the sons of Aaron to take over the institution of the priesthood. And God, as he will do with Miriam and Aaron and Korach, maintains the order of government. The third interpretation is wine, as in they entered the service of God drunk from wine, which is unacceptable. In the past, I spoke about the two first topics, and today I want to talk about the possibility that they, the sons of Aaron, drank wine before they went to serve God. It seems reasonable that the sin of the sons of Aaron is connected to wine, because immediately after the punishment, God speaks to Aaron and tells him to keep from wine, and he will not die when he comes into the tent of meeting. Then the Lord said to Aaron, "You and your sons are not to drink wine or other fermented drinks whenever you go into the tent of meeting, or you will die. This is a lasting ordinance for the generations to come, so that you can distinguish between the holy and the common, between the unclean and the clean." Here, we're learning some points that are very important for us today. It is necessary to respect the house of God. We cannot defile the holy place. We cannot bring impurity into the worship of God. As God told Aaron, God distinguished between the holy and the unclean. And we are obligated to make the same distinction. When we enter into the congregation, we must honor the place as the house of God. The second point I learned here is that the leader of the gathering has a great deal of responsibility, be it a priest, a chief rabbi, or a congregational leader. And when we display inappropriate behavior, we despise the name of God, whom we represent. It is the same idea that appears in James. Not many of you should become teachers, my fellow believers, because you know that we who teach will be judged more strictly. The teacher has a double responsibility, because he does not only bear responsibility for himself, but for an entire group of people. And when the teacher fails and or makes a mistake, he misleads a whole group of people. Yeshua also warned the teachers and the leaders about responsibility. He claimed that they not only close the gate to heaven for themselves, but also for others. And therefore, their punishment is greater. This connects us to an interesting Talmudic quote. Torah should be taught only to a proper student, one whose deeds are attractive, or to a person whose behavior is unknown. However, a potential student who follows bad ways should be influenced to correct his behavior and trained to follow a straight path. After he repents, his deeds are examined and he is allowed to enter the house of study to be instructed. A potential student who follows bad ways speaks of a person who does not behave properly and therefore is not accepted into an institution for Torah studies. And here's the catch. Should not such a person receive an extra dose of Torah in order to teach him about virtues? The answer is that a Torah student who does not behave properly causes blasphemy. How? Torah students represent religion for all to see. The general public appreciates the virtue of a religion according to the moral virtues of its representatives. Torah students of good character encourage respect towards the Torah, but Torah students who are not good people invoke a negative attention, not only towards themselves, but mainly towards the Torah, which they supposedly represent. And this is the essence of blasphemy. And the leader carries a greater responsibility, or in the case of Aaron's sons, the responsibility is greater for the priests. Here, I also speak about, and I want to speak about and point to ourselves. To point not necessarily in a bad or critical manner, but we must be aware that we have responsibility. We are the billboards of faith in God, in faith in Yeshua the Messiah. We are literally a walking advertisement. And when people see us in our lives in a positive light, we give God a good name. We show faith in a good and positive light. In closing, we spoke today about the kosher laws. Yes, Yeshua emphasized that what is important is what comes out of the mouth. And this is true, but it does not have to be at the expense of what goes into the mouth. The divine commandment is, be holy because I am holy. This requirement comes at the end of the list of foods that are, according to God, unfit for eating. We also spoke of the sons of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu. We talked about the importance of behaving properly and preserving the sanctity of the house of God. In addition to being the example, we are the billboards of faith in Yeshua. Shabbat Shalom.